Carson Palmer went on Dan Patrick's show on Monday and said, yeah, I think Mike Tomlin, like you find a guy who wants out of his situation and maybe he's tired of Ben Roethlisberger, trying to replace Ben Roethlisberger. So they asked Mike Tomlin if he's a candidate for the USC coaching job. And here's what he said.
I don't have time for that speculation. I mean, that's a joke to me. I got one of the best jobs in all of professional sport. Why would I have any interest in coaching college football? That'll be the last time that I address it. And not only today, but moving forward. Never say never, but never. Okay? Anybody else got any questions about any college jobs? There's not a booster with a big enough blank check.
Anyone else? All right.
Thank you. Anybody asking Sean Payton about that? Anybody asking Andy Reid about stuff like that?
All right, better line. There's not a booster with a big enough blank check, or I never say never, but never.
The booster line is pretty awesome. The booster line, I mean, what did Axe say? What's the point of having FU money if you never say FU? Like,
yep.
Tomlin is so rich. And I think one thing he's saying is, like, I'm rich, so I don't give a shit about some boosters money. I'm an NFL guy. Now, again, I'm someone, I'd be lying if I said I didn't eat this fucking rumor up, and I have mentioned his name before. I want to see it. He would be my number one candidate. Please bring him out here for my own selfish prerogative of consuming Pac-12 football. Mike Tomlin would be my number one choice without hesitation. So I can't claim to, like, get on my high horse and be like pounding the table. I loved it in the sense of, like, I hope he's lying. But it sure doesn't feel like he's lying. And
you're right. It's like, that's how you would deny it if you were going to deny it.
But it was pretty incredible. And in fairness, like, it wasn't, it was Carson Palmer saying this, and I could see him. It's like he has to answer it, or someone's going to ask him the question the moment that happens. And I was thinking, like, did Carson, he's a Bengal guy, but he hates the Bengals and Mike Brown. So
trying to sow some bad stuff for the Steelers.
Yeah, I don't think he's doing that. But there is no better feeling, I would say, in life, whatever the relative amount of money is, when someone wants you and you just go, get the fucking hang up on him. Basically, is what he just did there. Don't even waste your time calling me.
I mean, it was incredible. It was one of the great denials. I don't know how the question was asked. I hope the person who asked it didn't say, Mike, there've been reports, because that's one thing that pissed me off. I've been watching some media coverage of it today. It's like, not pissed me off, but like, there were reports. Like, no, there weren't reports. Carson Palmer, SC guy, said it'd be cool if we could have Mike Tomlin. And then Dan Patrick.
No. He said a mystery candidate is Mike Tomlin. Those were the words that came out of Carson's mouth.
Yeah, but I thought watching it, like, he was not saying, like, Mike's interested. He was saying this is
No.
Yeah.
Didn't he say a mystery candidate?
Yeah, but then he just said Mike Tomlin. He said, there might be a guy there who has a great job. You could lure an NFL guy who's trying to replace Ben Roethlisberger, Mike Tomlin. He said Mike Tomlin.
Yeah.
So, but then Dan acted like he was breaking news, and then Carson acted like, oh, I wasn't supposed to say that. I think that's the part when Carson's like, was I not supposed to say that? And I'm sure they've got a list of guys they want to talk to, but I think what Mike said, because I've seen couple of people say, like, oh, this is a bad look for SC. First of all, everything Mike Tomlin, I think he's in an interesting spot because he's been there for 15 years. He's 49 years old. Is he going to coach another 15 years? Is he going to coach another 20 years? Is he going to coach them all in Pittsburgh? How could you leave Pittsburgh for another NFL job? Like, you're not leaving Pittsburgh to coach the Texans.
What's what he said? I have one of the best jobs in all of sport.
So it's one of two things. Either he's going to just keep the same job for 30 years, which nobody does, or he'll leave it. And I don't think it makes any sense to leave it for another NFL job because he has one of the best NFL jobs, period. So I could see, like, you made the point to me today. Well, I mean, if he wants to change a place, blah, 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 blah. I think what that is, to me, the heart of what he said was at the end of what he said. Nobody's asking Sean Payton, and nobody's asking Andy Reid. Now, I would say to Mike, yeah, if Carson Wentz had said Sean Payton's name, they would have asked Sean Payton. But I think that's the heart of what he said. It's not about SC. It's not about an SC rumor. I think he's been waiting for a chance to say, why the fuck don't I get the same respect that Andy Reid and Sean Payton get? I've won a championship. I've been here 15 years. I never lose. I never have losing seasons. And you guys don't talk about me the way you talk about Sean Payton and the way you talk about Andy Reid. Now, why is that? Because I don't call plays? What is it?
You did lose at home last year to the Browns in the playoffs.
Super Bowl came year 2, right? But I think it was his chance to say, here are the best coaches. Let me tell you the best coaches in the NFL. Bill Belichick. Then it's Sean Payton, Andy Reid, and me, Mike Tomlin, and Pete Carroll. Those are the guys. And maybe he doesn't feel that way about Pete. I don't know. I think he's been dying to say that. And he said it. They gave him a window to say it. Because why would he be that pissed about? Like, I think that's what it's about.
I think he's pissed because anytime that you have, an incredible situation, he's a star head coach at easily the most stable organization, I would say, in all of sports. And I'd say one of the most stable organizations. I bet if we really did some like nitpicking of like Fortune 500 companies, I bet they're running through executives more often than like the Steelers are. I mean, how long have those two guys been there? And it's like I have to answer this question you asked me. He's got a huge game this week coming off a bye. His team, is by no means dead, even though I think a lot of us wrote him off. And like you guys think, part of it, you think I'm going to go to fucking college? Like that, you think I'm going to go to college? Me. So it might not even have anything to do with SC, but just the notion that I have to leave the Steelers to go to college? To go to college. Like, do you know what he wants to say? Even if I'm not going to last 20 years here, right? Just because I just looked up Chuck Noll. He was a head coach of the Steelers 69 to 91. So 22 years.
How many Super Bowls? 4, 5?
4-time Super Bowl champ. Now, granted, he didn't win once he won his last one in the 80s, or I mean in the 70s. He didn't win again in the 80s.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you say that, like, being a head coach for a long time in the 70s and 80s, it's just a little different now in the 2010s and now in the 2020s. What Mike Tomlin is doing is incredible. What Bill Belichick is doing is incredible, but you have to win at a high clip. But I think part of it is less about specifically SC, because it could have been Ohio State or LSU.
Yeah, I don't.
And more
I
like
agree.
Does anyone think that I wouldn't get it? However many fucking coaches get fired this offseason, guess who'd be their number one fucking candidate if the Rooneys, who I love, were to fire my ass? Me. 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 And you're right. I think it was more. He does get disrespected a little bit. I'm probably guilty of it too, because it's like, what does he do? And I love him. I mean, I would want to hang out with him. But he is right. He is not treated like those other two guys he's listed.
Yeah, absolutely. He's right. Now, again, those guys would get asked the question if Carson Palmer had said,
"You're right, though," but it wasn't about that. It was more that, like, give me my goddamn respect.
The other thing is, none of it's about him. It's also about Ben. Like, no one thinks, and no one would, like, Andy. Why would Andy? Huh? It's like, well, I don't know. Mike, sorry, I thought Ben's kind of been a pain in your ass. If you're cool, then it's all.
Someone should have been like, "Hey, Mike, yeah, Andy ain't leaving Mahomes." But did you see last night Sean Payton with Jameis? Maybe he would bolt.
Yeah, maybe now's the time for Sean. So, I don't know, it's fantastic press conference by him.
And listen, I saw some people like, why do we always go through this? And we did it forever with Gruden, the Gruden rumors. But this specifically, I mean, a high-level guy said it to Dan Patrick. It was not just one of those internet rumors. Carson Palmer said it, or else it would not have been said. Besides
Carson, who's definitely talking to the athletics director and other boosters.
He claimed he's involved with the process. So there have been historically some, Condoleezza Rice with Irsay the other day, like those type rumors that have happened that are just, and listen, it's fun, the college football cycle. And I guess Condi was an NFL cycle with the Browns. But this one, in fairness to the whole like speculation, there was a tangible thing that happened. It was said.
The speculation's not unfair at all.
Then Mike Tomlin would leave the Steelers to go to USC? Or
no, I'm just saying once Carson Palmer says it, then that's the story. Carson Palmer said USC would want you. Mike, would you be interested? Like, because
would Kyle Shanahan be interested?
Nah, I don't think so. But if Carson said his name, Kyle would get asked about it.
If he was interested, would you say USC should hire him if he wanted out?
If Kyle Shanahan got fired by the 49ers, should SC consider him? Yes.
Or just like said, they're going to let him out of his contract. He can go wherever he wants or do.
Yeah, that'd be a good hire. Yes.
You would take Kyle Shanahan over James Franklin?
Ooh. I mean, James never been to the national championship game.
No.
but he knows college football.
Yeah. Kyle want to recruit?
Jimmy Sexton. Yeah. It's interesting. That's a good one, John.
Kyle doesn't feel college. Mike does.
No, he doesn't.
Mike does. And it's
But he
why
was a college receiver.
But forever, like Herm Edwards, a lot of people talked about Herm Edwards, like he would do it. It's why once he got the job, it was crazy because it came out of nowhere. But once you thought about it, you're like, well, he is going to be able to sit down in these homes with a parent and sell people. And he's done a good job recruiting, right? I mean, it made sense. Tomlin feels like the infinitely on steroids version, way better coach version of Herm. I like Herm, but like there's not a college or an NFL team that would take Herm over Tomlin because Tomlin was made to kind of do both. Kind of like Pete. They could just, that's like when you look at Kyle, like, no fucking Belichick, no way, right? There are certain coaches that even like Andy, like, I don't know, he couldn't do the BS fluff 24/7. We're like, I think Tomlin could, McVay. If I told you McVay, you're like, yeah, he would crush it in college, right? If I just put McVay at Michigan, or I put McVay at USC, you're like, yeah, he'd be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, part of it too, you had me thinking this the other day. You're like, Tomlin just wants to impact lives differently than he can in the NFL. You can easily concoct the scenario.
Well, that's why Herm made sense because he was always talking about that. But at Tomlin's core, do you know what he likes doing? Winning football games on Sundays at the highest level.
Being the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers is pretty cool also, John.
Yeah. He makes a ton of money.
It's pretty cool.
But he did, like, the rant about the boosters is an incredible line. It's an incredible line.
It's a great line.
But it's like, Mike, no one's acting like you don't make a lot of money or they can buy you or whatever. They were just saying the interest, maybe you're done. It wasn't about money. You're rich. Well, we know it. You're rich,
Also, there aren't a lot of people in his spot. Like Sean Payton is one. And we've seen it. Like being in one place 15, 20 years, it's just sometimes things change. But the question has to be asked because if the question's not asked and then he gets the job, it's like, whoa, we missed this story because we were afraid to ask him.
Okay, let's take those three guys. Mike Tomlin, Sean Payton, Andy Reid. Do any of them coach at another place before their career ends? Sean Payton's 57, Andy, I think 61.
I'd say
Obviously,
Andy,
Mike's
no.
No chance.
Sean, it feels like no to me as well because he's kind of they had the moment to leave, right? Where we thought there was going to be a breakup and they didn't.
And they gave him a ton of money and he's the man there.
Yeah, I don't see why he would.
But you would say he would be more like Andy's definite no. He would be a no, but it's not the craziest thing you've ever seen, right?
Right. I mean, you just bet on if the odds are a coach is going to stay somewhere forever or eventually leave, then you bet on eventually leave.
Yeah.
But again, part of it's like, the NFL's not college. So if an NFL coach doesn't want to go to college and they're in control of their situation, there's no reason you're not going to go because this school is in a better conference and they can pay me more money, right? Like, who is Sean Payton going to coach? The Patriots? He has a falling out. Bill retires. McDaniels leaves. Robert Kraft tells him, I'll pay you $17 million a year to come coach the Patriots. Okay. But I mean, what's more likely is that he's got a great situation.
Well, the other thing, if Andy Reid's just going to retire whenever he's done with Mahomes, Sean Payton and definitely Mike Tomlin, both those two guys, if they ever became available, obviously every team with an opening would offer them. Look what happened to Rivera. Like immediately, football teams like, it's your job. Those guys are obviously highly thought than him. There would be teams with coaches that would think like, should we fire our guy to hire him? Right? Like the Seattle Seahawks should be like, Pete's 70. You got to go. We're just going to bring in Sean Payton to get with Russell, and they'll be buddies, right? There'd be teams like that would be willing to do it.
You're right. If he becomes available, if he were available, SC would not. NFL teams would be firing their coaches for him.
Yeah. The New York Giants would call immediately. Hell, the New York Jets, like, should we just fire everybody and go hire Sean Payton or Mike Tomlin? Because I'd be like, yeah, I'd think about it. I like Robert Saleh as much as the next guy, but bye-bye, Robert. Right?
If Mike Tomlin was available, Aaron Rodgers would call Mike and go, Mike, let's do a package deal. Where can we go together?
If you and I ran the Jets and we just hired Saleh, his entire crew, we also had Joe Douglas, and I said Mike Tomlin is available, could we justify firing everybody and just
Absolutely,
hiring Mike Tomlin?
you could.
Yeah. Without hesitation.
And if you were the Giants, I think the Jets and Giants would have a bidding war over Mike Tomlin.
Or Sean Payton, if they became available.
I mean,
Hell, what if Andy Reid became available? Don't you think he'd get the same treatment? Like, what if Andy Reid was just available?
yes. I just started to think like, would Mark Davis be able to win any of those battles? Because his job is attractive in terms of his quarterback, right? And like full
Well, he's
franchise
proven that he
power.
will pay someone 10 years, $100 million.
That's true. I guess it depends on whether Gruden gets his money or not, which he's not, right? He didn't get fired, so.
Yeah, the last I saw, Florio wrote like last week that it's unclear. Like, there haven't been reports that he's suing him, that he was just cool with going. But he basically, like, when does that ever happen? Wait, you owe me $60 million? I'm just good. I'll see you later.